may be seated. So if you remember, last week I began by saying that everything I was saying could be wrong while I was saying it, or certainly 5 minutes after, or dramatically change. So that was a week ago. So a week ago Friday, our 15 ladies who were in Israel had only way out was a bus ride to Jordan, not the most pleasant experience, an overnight in Jordan, a flight to Cyprus, an overnight in Cyprus, and then a charter flight to Tampa. The skies of Israel were closed. All commercial airlines, all of El Al's planes, were not even in Israel. They had been flown to Europe to protect it from possible attack. A week ago, we had given up pretty much on our kids from Israel who were planning. The first group was flying here on July 2nd. The ones from Katzrin, 5 grandchildren, son and his wife. We gave up on that. One of our granddaughters here, Hadar, was scheduled to participate in a Young Israel high school trip to Israel for 3 weeks. She was supposed to fly out July 2nd, and we pretty much given up on that. So, where are we now? Our son and his family will arrive July 2nd on an El Al flight at 5:30 in the morning. At 12 noon that afternoon, Hadar, the granddaughter here, will get on that plane, the same plane, and go to Israel for her 3-week program there. Our other group from Zichron Yaakov, their flights were canceled, but now we're rebooking them for flights from Israel on July 15th, 16th, whatever we can find. The flights are coming on and are booked as quick as they come on. 10 minutes later, there's no more seats left. So that's a dramatic change, obviously. Israelis are back to work, back to school. Their chugim, their special activities, have returned. They're at the beach. And they're pretty much flying anywhere they can to get a week or two vacation because they've been living under incredibly difficult circumstances for so long now. So much has changed, and I think much has changed for the better. And what we can see now with perspective, it's not over. I'm sure next week we'll have something completely different to talk about, new developments. But we now understand what has been happening since October 8th. We have seen a complete remaking of the Middle East. Something that many people talked about, many politicians dreamed about, and nobody ever did anything about other than talk. What we've seen since October 8th, Israel has degraded and will soon have destroyed Hamas, ended their rule in Gaza, degraded Hezbollah to the point that even while Iran was being attacked, Hezbollah didn't respond with a single missile or a single bullet. Their most important proxy was Hezbollah, and they received absolutely zero support while they were being attacked by Israel and then later by America. Hezbollah is so degraded that Lebanon finally has a chance to rule again in their own land. Iranian theocracy looks pathetic and decrepit, as well as helpless militarily. Israel established complete control of the skies over Iran, over Lebanon, and over Syria. Not a word of objection from Jordan, or from the Saudis, or from the Egyptians. Israel can now penetrate, we see, enemy organizations, find and kill their militant leaders wherever they are hiding. All of this contributed to the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria, and their military there was completely and totally decimated. Their air force is gone, their air defense is gone, their missiles are gone. And of course, the Assad regime is gone. We are now moving towards normalizing relations with the new Syrian regime, which is strange because they have an incredibly fanatical background. They, in essence, were terrorists. But now they seem to be very practical. I would say what that means is they're not suicidal. Any confrontation with Israel they know would end. They would be like Nasrallah and Sinwar, and their military would be decimated. And so they've decided to go the way of negotiation and perhaps normalization of relations with Israel. The axis of terror, as we've called them for so long, is in shambles. The Houthis are next if they don't stop. Iran's nuclear program, and of course that's the major difference between last week and this week, has been set back years. And with Israel and America's new policy of no nukes and any attempt to restart the program will be met with military force. So the nuke program is indefinitely set back. I say indefinitely because America has new elections every 4 years. And who knows if the next president will be as determined to keep nukes out of the hands of Iran, or be like Clinton, who let the North Koreans restart their nuclear program, and now we have a nuclear-armed North Korea, terrifying and terrorizing that part of the world. So we don't know. David Brooke, an excellent political analyst and commentator, often published in the New York Times, is obviously, as you well know, not a fan of either Bibi or Trump. And that is the biggest understatement of the month. But he wrote the other day that we were totally right, they were totally right about the Iranian threat, and that must be acknowledged because of how true it is. He even says that Netanyahu was right to be obsessed with Iran over the past decades. If you go back to Netanyahu when he's 30 years old and he was speaking, his focus was always the danger of Iran to cut off the head of the snake. The central source of instability in the Middle East has been Iran since 1979 revolution that brought the radical Islamists to power. That threat has been neutralized. That changes everything in the Middle East. It's clear that from October 8th on, Netanyahu had his eyes on decapitating Iranian leadership and its nuclear program as part of his response to October 7th. Trump's election put America and Israel on the same page. They had already been cooperating under Biden tremendously in degrading Hamas and removing them eventually from power. Everything that's happened, we now know, was coordinated politically and militarily between Israel and America from the last year of Biden's term all the way through these first 6 months of Trump's term. The response of Israel has not been as many wanted. The truth is, many had expected and wanted, after October 7th, limited retribution. Hit them hard, let them know we're mad, and then go back to status quo. Hamas rules, but they're a little bit down in terms of their abilities, but not removed from power. Instead, Israel decided to dismantle the whole noose that had been hanging over her head for decades. Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. The mantra that we hear now, particularly in the educated elite, the demonstrators you might have seen had this sign: war is not the answer. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. War is not the answer. Problem is, it depends what the question is and who the other side is. That's the mantra we're hearing, but it's not true. Sometimes war is the only answer, unless you're willing to be destroyed by your enemy. War is not the answer is what Chamberlain thought. This idea that you can negotiate and work out problems with maniacal and ideological enemies bent on your destruction is naive and it's dangerous. If England had stopped Hitler at the beginning, when he first violated the treaty after World War I and began to rearm and began to demand territory, we could have saved close to 70 million lives and 6 million Jews. Instead, Chamberlain decided war was not the answer. But war came anyway. But it was too late because the Germans were now too strong. And the world and the Jewish people paid an enormous price for that miscalculation. The idea that we could placate Hamas and Hezbollah with money, more access to world's markets, or negotiate the end of the nuclear program of Iran was completely and totally naive. Worse, it was dangerous. The lesson of World War II: when someone says they want to annihilate you, believe them. They actually mean it. We need to disabuse the radicals in the Middle East of the idea that they have promulgated for so many years now that Israel is a colonialist enterprise and the Jews can be forced out. It's a lie. It falsifies history. And the sooner the last few holdouts in the Middle East and the naive fools of our elite universities learn this quicker, that Israel is not a colonialist enterprise. Israel is the return of the Jewish people to their ancient homeland. Then we can have peace in the Middle East. That was what the Abraham Accords were. Those who entered the Abraham Accords gave up on that idea. Nasser of Egypt pushed it very strong when he threatened in 1967 that Jews are colonialists. They don't belong in the Middle East. They need to be pushed out. Those who joined the Abraham Accords said the opposite. Israel's a legitimate Jewish state. It's there permanently. We're now neighbors with that state, and we'll all be better off cooperating economically and politically at peace. Iran will either come to that conclusion now that she's been beaten into the ground, her nukes are gone, her military has been embarrassed, it was impotent. She'll either come to that conclusion now, or her next attempt to rearm, restart her nuclear program will be met with overwhelming destructive force. David Brooks said, our enemies are really our enemies. And he pined for the tradition of FDR, Truman, Scoop Jackson, Ronald Reagan, and Hillary Clinton, who all were champions of democracy, champions of human rights, but who also understood that in a dangerous world, American power is a necessary force for stability, peace, and the preservation of civilization. In fact, it's the only force capable of maintaining peace and saving the West. If you listen carefully to what those demonstrators on those so-called elite college campuses were saying, you would realize that the bottom line is this. They believe that their mission is to protect the world from the threat of American power. That the greatest threat in this world is America. Not the Russians, not the Chinese, not the radical Islamist terrorists, not Iran, but America is the greatest threat to world peace. That is what many of them have been taught in the classrooms of those so-called elite universities for too many decades now. And now we see what fruit it has borne, a very dangerous fruit. It's a lie, a dangerous, dangerous lie, a complete distortion of history. It is American power that prevents the complete destruction of Western civilization. The rabbis had a very powerful teaching that some people find very offensive because it's kind of aggressive. They said the following, very simple. Haba l'horgecha, hashkem l'horgo. If someone is coming to kill you, get up early and kill him first. Not get up early and have negotiations, unless they want to negotiate. Believe those who say they want to kill you. Beware of those who create the weaponry that they can use to kill you. Before they can take action, get up early, get rid of their nukes first, kill their leaders, demilitarize them as much as possible, and let them know that you are going nowhere and you have the power to prevent them from seriously harming you. That should be the mantra. The mantra is when you have an enemy who is bent on killing you, who has stated over and over again, death to Israel, death to America, believe him, get up early, defeat him, protect yourselves, and protect humanity from this evil axis that in the last 2 years, almost 2 years, has been weakened to a greater degree than ever before since Iran came into power, the mullahs, ayatollahs of Iran. If we keep that policy going, we can look forward to the end of the Gazan war within the next few weeks, the end of Hamas rule there, peace with Syria, Lebanon returned to a real country, Iran quiet, without her nukes and without her ballistic missiles, and an expansion of the Abraham Accords. If this happens, and I really believe that's the direction we're going in, we will see peace descend upon the Middle East, something we haven't seen in our lifetime, and that will be a blessing to the Palestinian people, the Arab people, to the Jewish people, to the Christians in the Mideast, and to the entire world. Kain Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will, V'nomar Amen. Don't check your phones to see if everything I just said is wrong. Wait. It could change.
I'm Rabbi Roisman, and I endorse that message.